Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are in a park today because Shakespeare outside is kind of magic and there's not going to be that many days left this year when I can do this. So we're going to do this today and we've got a long one, so stay tuned. We are working on the birth of Merlin and we get to hear from Prince Arthur Pendragon today in Act 2, Scene 3, but yesterday we just finished up Act 2, Scene 1, so oh my goodness, we have a lot that we need to cover. So we've got the lovers, we've got the missing brother, Arthur Pendragon, who was actually found at the end of Act 2, Scene 1, wandering in the forest because he had seen some beautiful woman and he was trying to find her. And the clown and his sister Joan, who's very pregnant, thought that he might be the father of the baby, but it turns out he's not. He just got really angry and started beating her instead, like you do. But anyway, we also have King Aurelius, the king of the Britons, who were fighting with the Saxons, and when the Saxon delegation showed up, they were led by Princess Artesia, who King Aurelius fell in love with and decided that he would create a truce by marrying her, and everybody thinks that this was a terrible idea. So that about catches us up to where we are. So Act 2, Scene 2 starts off with this pomp and circumstance to indicate that the wedding has happened. We've got this procession that goes by of both Briton and Saxon lords and ladies, and the king, Aurelius, and Artesia's there, and all these people. They sort of parade across the stage, and she has now been crowned, and this is how we know that the king and Artesia are now married. And then most of them leave, but some of the lords stay behind, and they're like, well, they just met 6 days ago, and now they're married. This is ridiculous. And then another lord named Edal comes in, and he's very much been a British loyalist up to this point. He comes in and he's like, why didn't you guys stop this? This is the worst thing that could have happened, was for Aurelius to marry this woman. How did you let this happen? You were standing right there. You're like his advisors. You're supposed to steer him in the right direction. And Donibert comes back after a little bit of back and forth on this, and he's like, but it was your letters that said it was time for us to parley with the Saxons, so technically this is kind of your fault. And he's like, I didn't tell you that he should marry the princess. I just said that we should start getting towards the end of this whole war thing. I didn't know that they were going to send her, and I didn't know that he was going to fall in love with her. You guys should have killed her on the spot. And I think it's Edwin, or one of the other lords, jumps in and he's like, well, in fairness, had you been there, which you weren't, but had you been there when all of this was going down, you wouldn't have jumped up to kill her in front of the king either. That's not a thing that was going to happen, and no matter how this scenario plays out. And Adol's like, you want to bet? He's like, I'm done. Britain has messed itself up so badly with this by this point. I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to go get the Saxons to come and invade, or I'm going to kill the queen or something. So he leaves, and the rest of them are like, oh, this is not going to be good. And that's basically Act 2, Scene 2. Act 2, Scene 3, we're there, and it's the same day-ish. Aurelius is like, how come my kingdom looks so sad? I just got married. Things should be cooler and funkier and a lot more fun, and there should be parties going on, and everybody should be lining up to drink a toast to my brand new wife. And they're like, we don't really want to, because we don't really approve of this. And he's like, oh, the hermit will. Get over here, Mr. Hermit. And the hermit's like, no, I don't believe in this either, and I'm not going to toast this woman and this over hasty marriage that really made no sense. So then Artesia and some of the other Saxons, because now Britons and Saxons are kind of trying to work together under Aurelius's idea to make this be a truce or a joint league, whatever. They start saying bad things about the hermit. They're like, well, he's not talking like an actual hermit, and he can't really know what's going on. He's not really a magician, and when he scared our troops, that wasn't really a thing, because he doesn't know what he's doing. We have this other guy who's much better, whose name I believe is Proxima or something like that. So they decide that they're going to have a magician battle, and the hermit, Anselm, and the Proxima are supposed to both do something. So Proxima goes first, and he says to the king, he's like, what do you want? In all of heaven, hell, the universe, whatever, what do you want? Tell me and I'll make it happen. And the king's like, oh, let's go easy. Can you make I believe, can you make Hercules show up? Hercules and Achilles, I think, is who he wants to have show up. So Proxima calls a couple of spirits, and he's like, all right, we're going to do this thing. And they disappear for a second. Then they come back, and they do this sort of pantomime of, I believe it's Hercules and Achilles maybe like going to fight that goes on for a minute. But then the hermit Anselm walks in between the two spirits, and they just stop dead. And Proxima is like, what do you do? Like, keep going. They're like, no, we're not messing with that guy. And they disappear. So sort of by default at this point, that means that the hermit has won, and they kind of have to acknowledge that the hermit has won. But this is not necessarily good news for Aurelius, because he wants there to be ties built, but he can see that there's a rift growing. So there's like growing tension through this scene, which gets broken a little bit when Troclio says, haha, your brother's still alive and he's here. And the king's like, no, he's not. And he's like, yes, he is. And in comes Uther Pendragon, who takes one look at the scene before him, and he's like, that's the woman that I fell in love with. That's the woman that I saw walking around the forest, who was so beautiful that I've not been able to get out of my head. What is she doing here? And Aurelius is like, this is my wife Artesia. And Uther is like, she married my brother. She married my brother. And it's like he's having a little bit of a hard time sort of making that compute. And there's this back and forth between the two of them where it's like, yeah, but she married him, but I fell in love with her, and is she a dream, and what's going on here, and blah, 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 until finally Uther's like, you know what, I'm guessing, based on all of this, that this is your wedding night, and I'm not going to detract from that, so go have your wedding night, and we'll talk later. And as she's leaving, Artesia takes Uther by the hand, and says, could you speak so? I would not fear how much my griefs did grow. And then she and Aurelius, and just about everybody else, leave because like party's over, whatever, and Prince Uther is left on stage by himself, and he says, could you speak so? I would not fear how much my griefs did grow. Those were her very words. Sure, I am waking. She wrung me by the hand and spake them to me with a most passionate affection. Perhaps she loves, and now repents her choice in marriage with my brother. Oh, fond man, how darest thou trust thy traitor's thoughts, thus to betray thyself? 'Twas but a waking dream, wherein thou madest thy wishes speak, not her, in which thy foolish hopes, striving to prolong a wretched being. So sickly children play with health-loved toys, which for a time delay, but do not cure the fit. Be then a man. Meet that destruction which thou canst not fly. From not to live, make it thy best to die. And call her now, whom thou didst hope to wed, thy brother's wife. Thou art too near a kin, and such an act above all names a sin not to be blotted out. Heaven pardon me. She's banished from my bosom now forever. To lowest ebbs men justly hope a flood. When vice grows barren, all desires are good. So this is him having like a little bit of not quite, I don't want to say a fanboy moment, but like an unrequited crush type moment. He's like, she said this to me, and he's going to start like parsing it for subtext. And what did she mean? And she grabbed my hand. So does that mean that actually she's in love with me and she regrets marrying my brother? Or no, like I have to be crazy. She didn't actually say that. I was imagining that she said that because I wanted her to have said that. So I'm clinging onto this hope the way that a child clings onto a toy, hoping that the toy will make them better when they're sick, but it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. And he's like, I have to get over this, because to steal the queen from my brother is completely inexcusable. That's a sin that I cannot recover from. So I kind of have to just forget about it. But Act 2, Scene 3 is not over. But this video is very long, so we're going to pick up tomorrow because some more interesting things are going to happen in Act 2, Scene 3. So I'll see you tomorrow for that as we learn more. Mwah.